The cargo hold of the New Horizon hummed with the soft blue glow of preservation units. Dr. Lisa Harper moved between the containers with practiced ease, checking each specimen one final time before they reached Earth. Her hands traced over the control panels as she verified the temperature and atmosphere settings for each delicate plant sample. "How are our green friends doing back there?" Captain Jake Morrison's voice crackled through the comm system from the bridge. Lisa smiled as she adjusted the settings on Container 7. Inside, a cluster of silver-leafed vines from Kepler 442b swayed gently in their artificial breeze. "They're perfect, Jake. These symbiotic specimens could change everything we know about medicine. The preliminary tests show they can actually communicate with human tissue at a cellular level." "Still sounds like magic to me," came the gruff voice of Sam Rodriguez from the engine room. The chief engineer had been Jake's friend since their military days, and he never missed a chance to tease Lisa about her scientific enthusiasm. Amy Chen, their young communications officer, laughed from her station. "Sam, you say that about everything more complex than a wrench. Hey, wrenches make sense, plants that talk to your cells? That's weird science fiction stuff." Lisa shook her head, still grinning. After 3 years working with this crew, their banter felt like home. She moved to the next container, where a collection of crystalline flowers caught the light like tiny prisms. These were her favorite specimens from the garden world they'd just left. The local colonists called them memory flowers because they seemed to glow brighter when people thought happy thoughts near them. "Jake, how long until we're home?" she asked, securing the last container. "About 6 days if we stick to the main shipping lanes." "Why, missing Earth food already?" "I'm missing my lab. I want to start testing these samples properly, and I promised my sister I'd be back in time for her wedding." Jake's voice softened. "We'll make it, Lisa. I know how important that is to you." Lisa touched the small silver locket around her neck, which held a picture of her and her sister as children. Family meant everything to her, almost as much as her research. She'd spent the last 5 years studying alien plant life, but she always made sure to be home for the important moments. The ship suddenly shuddered, and Lisa grabbed the nearest support beam. "Sam, was that supposed to happen?" "Negative. That felt external." Sam's voice had lost its playful tone. "Jake, we might have company." On the bridge, Jake's hands flew over the sensor controls. What he saw made his blood run cold. 3 massive ships had appeared on their sensors, closing fast. The design was unfamiliar but clearly military, with weapon ports that could reduce the New Horizon to scrap in seconds. "Amy, try to contact them." Standard peaceful greeting. Amy's fingers danced over her console. "This is the civilian transport. New Horizon to unknown vessels. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came immediately, but not through the comm system. Instead, a tractor beam locked onto their ship, dragging them toward the largest alien vessel. Jake tried to break free, but their cargo hauler was no match for military-grade technology. "Jake, I'm reading massive energy signatures from those ships," Sam reported. "Whatever they are, they're not here to chat." The main view screen flickered to life, showing a creature that made Lisa's scientific curiosity war with instinctive fear. The alien stood nearly 8 feet tall, with gray skin that looked like armor plating. Its 4 arms ended in clawed hands, and its eyes glowed with an amber light that suggested both intelligence and cruelty. "Primitive humans," the creature spoke in accented but clear English. "I am War Commander Zethkar of the Veltar Hegemony. You will surrender your vessel and cargo for inspection." Jake stepped forward, his military training taking over. "This is a civilian transport on a peaceful mission. We're carrying botanical specimens for medical research. We have no military cargo or weapons." Zethkar's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "You misunderstand, human. We care nothing for your primitive weapons. Our sensors detect biological specimens of value. You will transfer them to our vessel immediately." "Those specimens are the result of 5 years of research," Lisa said, stepping into view of the screen. "They belong to the Terran Scientific Consortium. I can't just hand them over." The alien's 4 eyes focused on her with uncomfortable intensity. "You speak with knowledge, female. Your research will be useful to us. You will also transfer yourself to our vessel." Jake moved protectively in front of Lisa. That's not happening. These are peaceful scientific samples being transported under interstellar law. You have no right to take them or our crew. Rights? Zethkar's voice carried genuine amusement. You speak of rights, Deathworlder. You are insects who crawled from a harsh world and think yourselves worthy of consideration. We take what we find useful. Your specimens will advance Veltar science. Your female will provide us with her primitive knowledge before we dispose of her. The connection cut off, and immediately the New Horizon shook as boarding clamps attached to their hull. Jake ran for the weapons locker, but he knew their small arms would be useless against military-grade boarding equipment. Lisa, take Amy and get to the escape pods, Jake ordered. I'm not leaving my research. Those plants could save thousands of lives. And you won't save anyone if you're dead or captured. The sound of cutting tools echoed through the ship as the aliens burned through their hull. Sam appeared on the bridge carrying the largest plasma rifle from their emergency arsenal. Jake, they're coming through Cargo Bay 3. Multiple contacts. The first Veltar soldiers that entered were smaller than their commander but no less intimidating. They moved with military precision, their weapons sweeping the corridors as they advanced. Jake and Sam took defensive positions, but they were cargo haulers, not soldiers. The brief firefight ended with both men stunned unconscious by alien, neural disruptors. When Jake woke up, he found himself zip-tied to a chair in his own cargo hold. Lisa and Amy were similarly restrained nearby, both conscious but clearly shaken. The cargo containers that had held Lisa's precious specimens were gone. War Commander Zethkar stood before them, examining a small device that Jake recognized as Lisa's personal research tablet. Fascinating primitive female, your notes show more intelligence than we expected from your species. You will continue this work for the glory of the Veltar hegemony. I won't help you steal research that belongs to humanity, Lisa said firmly. Zethkar backhanded her casually, the blow sending her chair sliding across the floor. Jake struggled against his restraints, rage building in his chest. You will help us, or you will watch your companions die slowly. The choice is yours. The alien commander signaled to his soldiers, who began removing personal items from the crew. They took Jake's grandfather's military medals from his quarters, the ones his family had treasured for 3 generations. They took Amy's letters from home and Sam's collection of engineering manuals. They took Lisa's locket with the picture of her sister. Worthless trinkets, Zethkar observed, crushing Amy's family photo under his boot. Humans form such pathetic attachments to meaningless objects. As the aliens prepared to transfer Lisa to their ship, she looked back at Jake with tears in her eyes. Tell my sister I tried to make it home. This isn't over, Lisa. I promise you, this isn't over. Zethkar's mandibles clicked again. It is over, Primitive. Your kind lacks the strength to challenge the Veltar. Consider yourselves fortunate that we leave you alive to drift in space. Perhaps another vessel will find you before your air runs out. The aliens sealed the breach they'd cut in the hull with a temporary patch, just enough to keep the New Horizon from losing atmosphere immediately. Then they were gone, taking Lisa, the research, and everything the crew held dear. Jake sat in the damaged cargo hold, surrounded by his unconscious friends, and felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. The aliens had made a mistake. They thought taking things from humans was just business. They thought human attachments were weaknesses to be exploited. They were about to learn otherwise. The rescue ship Guardian found the drifting New Horizon 18 hours later. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the medical bay, a thermal blanket around his shoulders, watching the news feeds on the wall screen. The story was spreading faster than anyone had expected. Alien pirates attack human research vessel scrolled across the bottom of every major news channel. Jake's jaw tightened as he watched reporters interview politicians and military officials. They all used careful words like incident and unfortunate event. None of them seemed to understand what had really happened. Sam Rodriguez limped into the medical bay, his left arm in a sling from the neural disruptor hit. Jake, you need to see this. Amy's been monitoring the military channels. Amy Chen looked up from her portable communications unit, her young face pale but determined. Captain, The Terran Defense Coalition is calling an emergency session. Admiral Kate Sullivan herself is flying in from Mars Command. Jake knew that name. Sullivan was a legend from the Outer Colony Wars, the kind of officer who led from the front and never left anyone behind. If she was getting involved, this was bigger than a simple piracy case. Sir, Amy continued, they want to debrief us in person. A military transport is coming to pick us up. 3 days later, Jake stood in the briefing room at Luna Station, facing the most senior military leadership he'd ever seen in one place. Admiral Sullivan sat at the head of the table, her silver hair pulled back in a tight bun, her eyes the color of winter storms. Around her sat generals, admirals, and intelligence officials, whose names Jake recognized from history books. Captain Morrison, Admiral Sullivan began, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Tell us exactly what happened. Leave nothing out. Jake recounted the attack in detail, from the first appearance of the Veltar ships to their casual theft of everything his crew valued. He described Zethkar's dismissive attitude toward human life and the way the aliens had treated their personal belongings like garbage. When he finished, the room was silent for a long moment. Then Admiral Sullivan spoke, her words measured and cold. They took our people. They took our research. They took family photos and war medals and letters from home. She stood, placing her hands flat on the table. Gentlemen, ladies, they have made a serious error in judgment. Colonel Rick Martinez, leader of the Elite Reaper Special Forces Unit, leaned forward. Admiral, my teams can be ready for deployment in 6 hours. Just give us coordinates. This isn't just about one rescue mission, Colonel, Admiral Sullivan replied. Intelligence reports suggest the Veltar have been conducting similar raids across this sector for months. They see us as easy targets because we're not part of the major galactic powers. Dr. Alex Thompson, the military's chief xenopsychologist, cleared his throat. Ma'am, I've been studying Veltar behavior patterns. They're a hierarchical species that respects only strength. They genuinely believe that taking what they want from lesser species is their natural right. Then they clearly don't understand humans very well, Admiral Sullivan said. Captain Morrison, I'm offering you a choice. You can return to civilian life, file an insurance claim, and try to move on. Or you can help us get Dr. Harper back and teach these aliens why you don't steal from humanity. Jake didn't hesitate. I want to help, Admiral. Lisa is my partner and my friend. Those specimens she was carrying could save lives. And they took something that belonged to my grandfather, a man who died fighting for human freedom. Admiral Sullivan nodded approvingly. Then you'll accompany our task force as a civilian consultant. Your knowledge of the Veltar ship layouts and their procedures could be valuable. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Jake watched in amazement as the largest human military fleet ever assembled took shape in the shipyards around Luna. The flagship Retribution was a massive dreadnought, bristling with weapons and carrying enough firepower to level a small moon. Around it gathered cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels, each one crewed by humans who had heard about the attack and volunteered for the mission. But Jake was most impressed by the conversations he overheard among the crew. These weren't soldiers talking about military objectives or strategic goals. They were talking about Lisa's sister's wedding and how she wouldn't be there. They talked about Jake's grandfather's medals and what they meant to his family. They talked about Amy's letters from home and how the aliens had destroyed them like they were nothing. It's not about the value of the objects, Dr. Thompson explained to Jake one evening as they watched the fleet conduct training exercises. It's about what those objects represent. Humans form emotional connections to people and things that give their lives meaning. When someone attacks those connections, they're attacking the core of what makes us human. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Sullivan studied the tactical displays showing their target system. Intelligence had located the Veltar stronghold, a fortress built into an asteroid field that they used as a base for their raiding operations. Admiral, her communications officer reported, we're receiving a message from the Veltar commander. Put him through. War Commander Zethkar's image appeared on the main screen, his forearm spread in a gesture that might have been mocking welcome. Human Admiral, you surprise us by coming so far for one insignificant female and some worthless plants. We offer you a trade. Turn around now and we will kill your people quickly instead of slowly." Admiral Sullivan's expression didn't change. "War Commander, you have something that belongs to us. We want it back. You speak like children who do not understand the universe. The strong take from the weak. This is natural law. Your species clings to meaningless objects and pathetic emotional bonds. This makes you vulnerable, not strong. You're about to learn how wrong you are about that," Admiral Sullivan replied calmly. "You see, War Commander, you made a critical mistake. You thought caring about things made us weak. You thought our emotional connections were something to exploit." She leaned forward, her winter storm eyes fixed on the alien commander. "But here's what you didn't understand. When you threaten what we care about, when you take what belongs to us, when you hurt our people, those emotional connections don't make us weak. They make us absolutely terrifying." Zethkar's mandibles clicked in what Jake now recognized as nervous laughter. "You bring one fleet against our fortress, human. We have destroyed species with larger armadas. This isn't just about our fleet, War Commander. This is about sending a message to every species in this galaxy. When you take something that belongs to a human, when you hurt someone we care about, we don't just come for you. We come for everything you've built, everything you value, and everyone who helped you." The communication cut off, and Admiral Sullivan turned to her tactical officer. "Signal the fleet. Operation Homecoming is a go." Meanwhile, aboard the Veltar flagship, Dr. Lisa Harper sat in her prison cell, listening to the conversations of her guards. She'd learned enough of their language to understand that they were worried. The humans weren't behaving like other species they'd encountered. Most victims either accepted their fate or mounted disorganized rescue attempts that were easily defeated. But the humans had done something unprecedented. They had mobilized their entire military not just to rescue one person, but to make a statement. Lisa overheard one guard saying that human ships were appearing throughout Veltar space, not attacking but watching, waiting. In the cell next to hers, a small reptilian alien named Sisk from a species called the Threndari whispered to her through the bars. "Human friend Lisa, is it true your people come for you?" "Yes," Lisa whispered back. "They'll come for all of us." Other species tried before. Veltar too strong. Lisa touched the spot where her locket had been, thinking of her sister's wedding and Jake's promise that this wasn't over. "Sisk, other species might have tried to rescue their people, but we're not just coming to rescue. We're coming to teach the Veltar why you never take what belongs to a human." Outside the fortress, the human fleet moved into position like pieces on a chessboard. Each ship carried crew members who had heard the story of the New Horizon, who understood that this was about more than one attack. This was about establishing a principle that would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the tactical displays show her ships surrounding the asteroid fortress. Await. Few hours, the Veltar would learn what happened when you mistook human compassion for weakness. "All ships report ready, Admiral," her tactical officer announced. "Then let's go get our people back," Admiral Sullivan said. "And let's make sure the galaxy remembers why you don't steal from humanity." The stealth ship Ghost Rider drifted silently through the asteroid field, its hull painted black as space itself. Commander Beth Walker watched the Veltar fortress through her scope, counting weapon positions and guard patterns. She had been doing reconnaissance for 12 hours, mapping every entrance and defense system. "This is Ghost Rider to Retribution," she whispered into her comm. "I've found something interesting. The fortress isn't just a military base, it's a prison complex. I'm reading life signs from at least 6 different species." Admiral Sullivan's voice crackled back through the encrypted channel. "How many prisoners, Commander?" "Hundreds, Admiral, maybe thousands. This isn't just about raiding ships, they're running a slave operation." On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Sullivan felt her anger grow colder and more focused. The Veltar weren't just thieves. They were slavers who had been capturing and using sentient beings for who knew how long. "Colonel Martinez," she called to the Reaper commander. "Change of plans, this is now a liberation mission. We're not just getting Dr. Harper back, we're freeing everyone in that fortress." Colonel Rick Martinez nodded grimly. His Reapers were the best soldiers humanity had ever produced, trained for impossible missions behind enemy lines. Ma'am, we'll need detailed layouts of the prison sections. Commander Walker will provide them. You have 6 hours to plan and execute. The fleet will provide distraction and fire support. Inside the fortress, Dr. Lisa Harper was trying to comfort a young alien creature that looked like a cross between a cat and a bird. The little being, who called itself Pip, had been captured 3 months ago when the Veltar raided its homeworld. "Human Lisa," Pip chirped softly. "The metal men say your people come for you. Is true?" "Yes, Pip. They're coming for all of us. But Veltar very strong. Other peoples tried before. Always fail." Lisa gently stroked Pip's feathered head. "My people are different, little one. We don't just fight for territory or resources. We fight for each other. And when someone hurts our family, we don't stop until we get them back." In the cell across from theirs, Sisk the Threndari was teaching other prisoners basic human words. The news that humans were coming had spread through the prison like wildfire, giving hope to beings who had given up long ago. War Commander Zethkar stalked through the fortress corridors, his forearms gesturing angrily as he spoke to his subordinates. "The human fleet sits outside our weapons range like cowards. They make demands but do not attack. This proves their weakness." His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vreltok, seemed less certain. "War Commander, our long-range sensors show more human ships arriving every hour. Their fleet is larger than any force we have faced. Numbers mean nothing without the will to use them," Zethkar snarled. "Humans are soft creatures who value individual lives over victory. They will negotiate and compromise until we tire of their pathetic attempts at diplomacy." He was wrong on both counts. The attack began at exactly 0300 station time, when the fortress's sensor network mysteriously went offline. Commander Walker's Ghost Rider had spent hours planting microcharges on the sensor arrays, blinding the Veltar to what was coming next. Sergeant Tony Davis and his demolition team materialized out of the darkness like ghosts. They had been inserted via stealth pods during a carefully timed meteor shower, using the natural debris to mask their approach. Davis was an artist with explosives, able to place charges that would create maximum chaos with minimum risk to prisoners. "Reaper Team Alpha in position," Colonel Martinez whispered into his comm. "Beginning primary infiltration." The first explosions were small but precisely placed, taking out power generators and communication hubs without damaging the prison sections. Emergency lighting flickered on throughout the fortress as Veltar guards scrambled to understand what was happening. "Reaper Team Beta, you're clear for entry," Martinez reported as his soldiers slipped through maintenance shafts that Commander Walker had mapped hours earlier. The Veltar had never faced an enemy like the Reapers. These humans moved through the fortress like smoke, appearing and disappearing before the guards could react. They used the aliens' own corridor layouts against them, turning the maze-like structure into a trap. Sergeant Davis planted charges on key structural supports, while his team eliminated guard positions with surgical precision. The Veltar found themselves cut off from each other, unable to coordinate their defense or call for reinforcement. "Contact multiple humans in Section 7, a Veltar guard screamed into his communicator before a Reaper stunner put him down, silently. Colonel Martinez reached the prison level first, moving through the corridors like a predator hunting prey. He found Dr. Lisa Harper's cell and quickly burned through the lock with a plasma cutter. "Dr. Harper, I'm Colonel Martinez Terran, Defense Coalition. We're here to get you out." Lisa looked up at the armored figure with tears in her eyes. "Colonel, there are hundreds of prisoners here. Different species, all captured by the Veltar." "We know, Doc. We're not leaving anyone behind." The liberation of the prison level was swift and methodical. The Reapers moved from cell to cell, freeing beings who had been enslaved for months or years. Many of the prisoners could barely believe what they were seeing. Humans, the species most aliens considered primitive and weak, were dismantling a Veltar fortress from the inside. Pip the catbird creature clung to Lisa's shoulder as they moved through the corridors. "Human Lisa, your people are like stories, like heroes from old tales." "We're just people who don't leave our friends behind," Lisa replied. War Commander Zethkar finally understood the scope of his mistake when Colonel Martinez appeared in his command center like a nightmare made real. The human soldier moved with deadly efficiency, his weapon trained on the alien commander's center mass. "Where are the stolen research specimens?" Martinez demanded. "You dare make demands of me, primitive?" Zethkar's forearms reached for weapons that were no longer there. Martinez's team had disarmed him before he even realized they were in the room. "I'm not making demands. I'm giving you one chance to cooperate before this gets unpleasant." Captain Jake Morrison entered the command center, escorted by 2 Reapers. His civilian clothes looked out of place among the military gear, but his eyes held the same cold determination as the soldiers around him. "Hello, War Commander," Jake said calmly. "Remember me? You took something that belonged to my crew, my partner, her research, and some personal items that meant a lot to us." Zethkar's mandibles clicked nervously. "You risk your entire fleet for one female and some worthless plants? Those worthless plants could save thousands of lives. That one female is a brilliant scientist and someone I care about deeply. And those personal items you threw away like garbage? They represent everything we value about being human." Jake walked to a display case where Zethkar kept trophies from his raids. Inside were Jake's grandfather's medals, Lisa's locket, Amy's, family photos, and dozens of other personal items stolen from various victims. "You see these as meaningless trinkets," Jake continued, carefully removing his grandfather's medals. "But this medal was earned by a man who died fighting fascists, like you. This locket contains a picture of 2 sisters who love each other. These photos show families who care about each other enough to write letters across the galaxy." He pinned the medals back onto his shirt, handling them with reverence that made even the alien guard step back. "You thought taking these things would break us. You thought our emotional connections made us weak. But here's what you never understood, War Commander. When you threaten what we love, when you take what belongs to us, those connections don't make us vulnerable. They make us absolutely lethal." Outside the fortress, Admiral Sullivan's fleet moved into final position. The Veltar defense platforms that should have been protecting the asteroid base were floating as lifeless debris, destroyed by precision strikes, while everyone's attention was focused on the prison break. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "Colonel Martinez confirms all prisoners have been evacuated. The fortress is secure." "Excellent. Signal the fleet. Prepare for Phase 2 of the operation." War Commander Zethkar was learning that humans didn't just rescue their people and leave. They made sure the threat could never hurt anyone else again. As he watched his fortress being systematically dismantled around him, he finally understood what it meant to face a species that fought not just for victory, but for justice. The galaxy was about to learn a new rule. Never take what belongs to a Deathworlder, because they won't just come for you. They'll come for everything you've built on the suffering of others. 3 weeks after the liberation of the Veltar fortress, Dr. Lisa Harper stood in her laboratory aboard the medical ship Mercy, watching through the viewport as another group of freed prisoners boarded transport vessels bound for their homeworlds. The sight filled her with a satisfaction deeper than any scientific discovery she had ever made. The Threndari delegation just sent another thank you message. Amy Chen reported from her new position as the fleet's diplomatic communications officer. That makes 47 different species that have officially thanked the Terran Defense Coalition for the rescue operations. Lisa smiled as she turned back to her workstation, where her rescued botanical specimens were thriving in their new containers. The Veltar had kept them alive but hadn't understood their true potential. Now, with proper equipment and time, Lisa was making discoveries that exceeded even her original hopes. "Jake, you need to see this," she called to Captain Morrison, who was reviewing reports at a nearby desk. "The symbiotic plants from Kepler 442b aren't just communicating with human tissue. They're actually learning from it, adapting their healing properties to work with different species." Jake looked up from his paperwork with interest. "Meaning what exactly?" "Meaning these plants could help heal the trauma that the freed prisoners suffered during their captivity. Physical trauma, psychological trauma, even species-specific injuries I've never seen before. It's like they're designed to help anyone who needs healing." Captain Morrison's expression softened. Lisa's dedication to helping others was one of the things he loved most about her. Even after being kidnapped and threatened, her first thought was how her research could help the other victims. Colonel Martinez entered the laboratory, still wearing his combat fatigues but looking more relaxed than he had in weeks. "Dr. Harper, the medical teams are requesting more of your healing compounds. The Zephyrian refugees are responding incredibly well to the treatment." "I'll have another batch ready in 6 hours," Lisa replied. "Colonel, how are the other liberation missions going?" The question brought a satisfied smile to Martinez's face. "We've hit 17 more Veltar slave facilities in the past 2 weeks. Each one gets easier because the other prisoners know we're coming for them. They're helping us from the inside now." What had started as a rescue mission for one human scientist had become something much larger. As word spread through the galactic underground that humans were actively hunting Veltar slave operations, other prisoners began sabotaging their captors and sending coded messages to human ships. Admiral Sullivan had made it clear that this was not just about revenge. This was about establishing a new principle in galactic relations. Species that preyed on others would face consequences, and those consequences would come from humanity. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Sullivan reviewed the latest intelligence reports with Dr. Alex Thompson. The xenopsychologist had been studying the galactic response to human actions, and his findings were fascinating. "Admiral, we're seeing something unprecedented in interstellar politics," Dr. Thompson explained. "Other species are starting to model their rescue operations on our methods. The Andorian Republic just launched their own anti-slavery task force. The Centauri Federation is sharing intelligence about trafficking routes. And the Veltar? Completely demoralized. War Commander Zethkar is in custody on 17 different worlds, facing charges from species he enslaved. The Veltar hegemony is trying to negotiate peace treaties with everyone they've wronged." Admiral Sullivan nodded approvingly. "Good. When you build your power on the suffering of others, you should expect to pay the price when someone stronger comes along." Back aboard the medical ship, a small ceremony was taking place in the main cargo bay. Pip, the catbird creature Lisa had befriended in prison, was finally well enough to return home. The little being had been so malnourished and traumatized when rescued that the medical teams weren't sure it would survive. "Human Lisa," Pip chirped as Lisa knelt down to say goodbye. "My people will remember what yours did for us. We will tell stories of the day the Deathworlders came to save the lost ones." Lisa gently stroked Pip's feathered head one last time. "Just remember, Pip, we didn't save you because you were weak. We saved you because everyone deserves to be free." Sisk the Threndari was also preparing to leave, but he had made an unusual request. Instead of returning to his homeworld, he wanted to stay with the human fleet as a cultural liaison. His knowledge of Veltar operations and his contacts, among other enslaved species, had made him invaluable to the ongoing liberation efforts. "Human friends," Sisk said in his carefully practiced English. "My people always taught that strong take from weak, and weak must accept this. But humans show different way. Strong can protect weak instead of hurt weak. This is better way." And day. The freed prisoners departed for their homes. Captain Morrison found himself thinking about the changes he'd seen in the galaxy over the past month. Fear of humanity was spreading among the predator species, but so was respect and gratitude from their victims. "Jake," Lisa said, joining him at the viewport as they watched the transport ships jump to hyperspace, "do you think we've changed how aliens see us?" Jake considered the question carefully. Before the attack on the New Horizon, most galactic species had viewed humans as emotional, unpredictable primitives who cared too much about individuals to be effective as a civilization. Now they were learning that those same emotions could make humans terrifyingly effective when someone they cared about was threatened. "I think we've shown them who we really are," Jake replied. "We're not the strongest species in the galaxy, or the smartest, or the most advanced. But when someone hurts our family, when they take what belongs to us, we don't stop until we make it right." The final liberation mission took place on a moon orbiting a gas giant in the outer rim. The Veltar had built their largest slave processing center there, a facility designed to break the spirits of captured beings before selling them to other species. Commander Beth Walker's reconnaissance showed over 3,000 prisoners from dozens of different worlds. The rescue would require the largest human military operation since the Outer Colony Wars. "This is it," Admiral Sullivan announced to the combined fleet. "This is where we end the Veltar slave trade once and for all." The operation was flawless. Years of practice had turned the human rescue teams into a precisely coordinated force. They moved through the facility like a force of nature, freeing prisoners and securing evidence of Veltar crimes with mechanical efficiency. When it was over, War Commander Zethkar sat in a holding cell aboard the Retribution, finally understanding the magnitude of his mistake. He had thought taking things from humans would be easy profit. Instead, he had awakened something that the galaxy hadn't seen before, a species that would cross the stars to protect strangers and fight wars to free people they had never met. "Human Admiral," he said when Admiral Sullivan came to visit him. "My people did not understand yours. We thought attachment was weakness." "It's not weakness, War Commander. It's what makes us human. When you took Dr. Harper, you didn't just kidnap one person. You threatened the entire principle that people should be free to live their lives without fear." Admiral Sullivan stood and prepared to leave. "Your species will recover from this, War Commander. You'll rebuild your fleet and your territories. But you'll never again make the mistake of thinking that caring about something makes us weak." 1 year later, Dr. Lisa Harper stood in a research facility on New Geneva, working with a team of scientists from 12 different species. Her botanical discoveries had led to medical breakthroughs that were helping beings across the galaxy recover from trauma and injury. The wedding ring on her finger caught the light as she adjusted the settings on a growth chamber. Jake had proposed 6 months ago, saying that almost losing her had made him realize he never wanted to waste another day. Dr. Harper, her Andorian research partner, called out, "The latest batch of healing compounds is ready for distribution to the refugee centers." Lisa smiled as she looked around the laboratory filled with beings from worlds she had never heard of before the Veltar attack. They all worked together now, sharing knowledge and resources in ways that would have been impossible before humanity had shown the galaxy a different way. Amy Chen, now serving as the facility's communications coordinator, approached with a message pad. "Lisa, we just received confirmation that the last Veltar prison camp has been shut down. The Galactic Council is declaring the slave trade officially ended." Outside the laboratory windows, Lisa could see ships from dozens of different species docked at the station. They came here not just for the medical treatments, but for something more important: proof that strong species could choose to protect instead of prey upon the weak. Captain Morrison entered the laboratory carrying a small wrapped package. "Lisa, this arrived today from Earth. It's from your sister." Lisa opened the package to find a photo from her sister's wedding, the one she had missed because of her captivity. But instead of sadness, she felt pride. Her sister had included a note explaining that the wedding had been delayed 6 months so Lisa could be there after her rescue. "Jake," Lisa said, looking at the photo of her smiling family, "do you think the galaxy is really different now?" Jake put